Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, I'd like to discuss the unashamed ignorance produced by the chairman of Marks and Spencer, who has been moaning about the impact of Brexit on his business. Nothing unusual there. What is a cause for concern is that Archie Norman, the chairman, doesn't seem to understand the very basics of Brexit at all. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So Archie Norman, unusual in being the chair of a major British business in that he has also been an MP in the past, although only for 1.5 parliaments. But it still gives him a unique insight. He has experience at both retail at the very top level and also, he was the guy who headed up Asda when it was taken over by Walmart, as well as being a parliamentarian for 8 years. And I've noted before how distressing it is when you hear of some business owners that simply didn't understand the market they operated in. You'd have thought it was impossible to be able to run a business without actually understanding your own market, wouldn't you? And I suppose it's a testament to just how brilliant membership of the EU was that you can be successful in business whilst being simultaneously clueless because the EU did all the hard work for you. But although I can sort of see how small business owners wouldn't know about all sorts of aspects of trade that you simply don't need to understand when you're in the single market, it has the power still to surprise me when an undoubtedly successful businessman like Archie Norman expresses the same level of ignorance. In an article in the Daily Mail, or it may have been the Mail on Sunday, it was this weekend, Norman complains that Marks and Spencer is under threat in France due to Brexit controls. Yes, absolutely. In fact, I talk about empty shelves in UK supermarkets right now, but we saw the same thing in French Marks and Spencer stores in January. Unable to export the sandwiches and other goods easily, it caused an immediate impact, which had nothing to do with drivers. This article in the Mail noted that because the sandwiches have a shelf life of only 48 hours, any delays really means a quick expiry date. They also spelt expiry wrong, but the Mail and all that. But I'm not here to pick on typos, never mind that. This is also something I've talked about. Delays of any kind are costly. But if you're talking about food that will spoil in the time it now takes to transport it, then you quickly move to a situation where you can't transport it at all. And you consider these statements so far and you go, yes, a senior retailer pointing out the problems of Brexit. Another voice trying to get the government to see sense. But no, that's not what he's saying at all. He's somehow blaming the EU for this. Absolutely maddening. Let me explain again. These problems do not exist between Poland and Germany or between Belgium or the Netherlands. They didn't used to exist between Britain and France. They only existed once we'd left the transition period. They started not when we left the EU, but when we left the customs union and single market. And I talk about those two a lot. I want us to rejoin the customs union and single market with all haste. It is a necessary step to rejoining the EU proper, and so must be the priority for foreign and trade policy right now. But they are two different things. And it's not like the names are confusing or excessively technical. The single market is just what it says. A single market where tariffs are not payable on any goods that move around the market, where trade barriers don't exist at all, whether tariff barriers or non-tariff barriers. Like restrictions on movement or the offer of services, it's all fine. The customs union is also what it sounds like. A union of nations who agree a common approach on dealing with customs for countries outside the group. It is possible to be in the single market, but not the customs union, like Switzerland, sort of, bit of a fiddle. Or it's possible to be in a customs union, but not the single market, like Turkey, again, sort of, because their customs union isn't actually as comprehensive. But this alleged business genius, and in many ways I don't doubt that he is, doesn't understand the difference. He said, and I quote, "The purposes of the customs union is to prevent products that doesn't comply with EU standards coming in, and there is no risk. This is purely border bureaucracy." This is complete nonsense. It is the single market that sets standards, not the customs union. The customs union exists purely to manage customs. The clue's in the name. The idea is that everyone in the customs union agrees on what tariffs should apply to goods coming from outside and apply them. That way, it only has to be applied once as it comes into the customs union. You don't have to keep messing about with paperwork as the goods pass through other countries in the customs union. That's what it's for. That's all it does. Nothing to do with standards. How can such a senior retail leader not get this? And his next line made me laugh, I have to say. So, following on from his notion that the problems are actually just down to Jobsworths at the border, he said, "It's what happens when you ask border officials to implement a set of rules when they are probably not experts in the subject of food safety." I thought to myself, he's criticising a group of workers for not being experts in their job when he has just announced a breathtaking level of ignorance on something that should be part of his job. Something that should be basic to an international retailer. What is a customs union? Doesn't seem to know. I wonder if anyone pointed it out to him. I wonder if he feels a little bit silly now. But whether he understands now or not, whether he now feels ashamed or not, the fact that he is part of the very real problem we have in actually dealing with the consequences of Brexit, that the government don't understand the reality of their Brexit fantasy is one thing. It's been said time and time again. The problem with the government is they have this world view. Usually it's based like 60 years ago, but they have this world view and they just think if they just divert from what everyone else is doing, everyone else will go, "Oh, that's a good idea, let's join them." No. But that they are full of crap and will deny their ignorance for the longest time is taken for granted. It's how politicians work in general. But to start to reverse the worst effects of Brexit, we need the affected industries to be able to set out the problems very clearly and then come up with solutions and then hammer the government if they don't apply those solutions. Goodness knows the government can't be trusted to solve any of their problems, if they could even be bothered to try. So when such a prominent business leader highlights the shocking lack of knowledge about their own market, not only does that make this more difficult, because then what you have is you have a disunited voice from the industry. You have a lot of people saying one thing, which will be along the lines of the government are boneheads and have stuffed everything up. But you also have the odd voice saying, "Oh, this isn't the government's fault, it's some uniform boneheads at the border." Well, guess which voice the government are going to listen to? But it's not just that. It's that you then have to wonder how many other major business leaders also don't have a clue. Like I say, for decades, they didn't really have to understand these things. As long as they were only trading in the single market, and almost all of Europe is in both the single market and the customs union. So as long as you were only trading with them, you really didn't need to know what the customs union was, what the single market was, much less what the distinction between them was. But we've left them now. That means international retail, even with our closest neighbours, even inside the UK itself, if you trade between Britain and Northern Ireland, requires a level of knowledge that simply wasn't needed before. And if the comments from Archie Norman are anything to go by, a level of knowledge that might be in short supply. And one final thought, given that we've known we were leaving the customs union single market for some time, didn't any of these extremely well-paid executives bother to do some research as to what the changes would be? Or at the very least, commission knowledgeable people to write a report on how their business model would be affected? That sounds to me like a shocking dereliction of duty to your business, to your customers, to your staff and to your shareholders. Actually, another final thought. He also said that it was almost impossible to get a sandwich into Paris with these rules. What I didn't see was him addressing the advice that Boris Johnson has for businesses in this situation. Because what has happened whenever a business have gone, we can't get stuff to Paris or to wherever in the EU, the government have advised them to set up operations in an EU country where those bothersome trade barriers just disappear. That's actually been their advice. Oh yeah, don't invest in Britain, that's a stupid idea. What you want to do is spend some money, get rid of your staff here, or some of them, set up a warehouse or whatever in the EU and employ staff there. That's how you deal with it. Now, obviously, smaller businesses can't do this, but larger ones can. And Marks and Spencer's have, they could just set up a food production facility in France. Or, they could just start learning what the actual problems are and demand that the government deal with it in the only way possible, by alignment with our European market. But there we are, not just small business owners who don't have a clue, which is much more understandable. It even affects experienced leaders of massive corporations as well. Brexit, the policy that just seems to get dumber with time. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.